Shots is number 88, Lynn Swan.
Appreciate you.
First black starting quarterback in the NFL.
Tragic truth. Joe Gilliam Jr. was once a football hero, but the first story people told after his death was not the full truth. On Christmas Day in the year 2000, Joe collapsed and died. He was just 4 days short of his 50th birthday. The first news reports said he died of a heart attack. His own father told the press that his son had passed away in his sleep, calm and at peace on the couch. For a short time, the whole country believed that gentle story. But weeks later, the medical tests told a darker tale. The autopsy and toxicology results showed that Joe did not die of a simple heart attack. He died from cocaine. His death was ruled an accidental overdose. The clean version came first. The hard truth came later. If stories like this matter to you, give this video some hype while you watch, because it helps more people find the player's football history tried to forget. One story was gentle and easy to hold. The other was heavy and full of pain. In the rush of grief, the gentle one was the one that spread. That is the heart of this whole video. The public heard one version of how Joe died, but the fuller truth was much darker than the first headlines made it sound. Now let us go back to who Joe Gilliam Jr. really was, and how he reached that final night. Joe Gilliam Jr. was born in 1950. People came to call him Jefferson Street Joe. He grew up around football. His father, Joe Gilliam Sr., was a respected coach at Tennessee State University. So young Joe lived and breathed the game from the time he was a boy. He was gifted early, and you could see it right away. In 1966, he became the starting quarterback at Pearl High School in Nashville. That year was special. It was the city's first season of football after schools were finally allowed to play together across the color line. Joe stood at the front of it. Then he went on to Tennessee State University, and there he became a star. At Tennessee State, Joe changed what people thought a quarterback could do. He played alongside Ed Too Tall Jones, who would later become a famous defender. Together, they helped the team build an amazing record of 39 wins and only 3 losses. The Tigers won back-to-back Black College National Championships in 1970 and 1971. One of the brightest moments came in the 1970 Grantland Rice Bowl, where Joe led his team to a thrilling 26-25 win over the Southwestern Louisiana Bulldogs. He threw deep, accurate passes and ran the offense with calm control. He was named an All-American. He was also named the top black college player in the country 2 years in a row. By the time he left school, he had done almost everything a college player could do, and yet the doors to the next level did not open the way they should have. The men who scouted players for the professional teams did not trust Joe to be a quarterback. They saw his talent, but they could not get past their own doubts. In that era, many people simply did not believe a black man could lead a team from the most important spot on the field. That belief was wrong, but it was strong, and it followed Joe everywhere he went. So the Pittsburgh Steelers waited and waited. They did not pick Joe until the 11th round of the 1972 draft. He was the 273rd player chosen. For a man with his record, that was a quiet insult. It was not a closed door, but it was barely a crack. He would have to fight for every single inch. Think about that for a moment. A player with 2 national titles and 2 Player of the Year awards had to wait while teams used their picks on hundreds of other men first. The talent was never the problem. The color of his skin, in the minds of those scouts, was treated like a risk. So Joe started his pro career already behind, already doubted, already having to prove what he had proven 100 times before. Then came 1974, and one of the strangest seasons in Steelers history. As training camp opened, the players' union called a strike. Only the veterans were asked to stay away from camp. The team's top quarterback, Terry Bradshaw, stayed out. So did the backup, Terry Hanratty. But Joe reported to camp anyway, and that one choice would shape everything that came next. Some people were angry. They called Joe a scab, a word for someone who crosses a picket line. They said he was just using the strike to steal a job, but that is not the full picture. Bradshaw was a star with money and safety. Joe was a third-string player taken in the 11th round. He had no security at all. If he had stayed home, the team might have cut him on the spot, and his career would have ended before it truly began. He showed up because he had no other choice. While the veterans were away, Joe took every practice rep he could get. He led a young, rookie-heavy team to a perfect 6-0 record in the preseason. He looked sharp. When the strike ended and the veterans came back, the coach, Chuck Noll, made a bold call. He named Joe the starter for the season opener. He said the choice was based only on merit. Even Bradshaw later admitted the truth. He said he lost the job because Joe had simply played better than he did. For a moment, it all came together. In the season opener, Joe led the Steelers to a crushing 30-0 win over the Baltimore Colts. He threw a 54-yard touchdown pass to Lynn Swann and a short 4-yard score to Frank Lewis. The win was so big that Joe ended up on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was, for that one shining week, the face of the whole league. The next week, he set a team record by throwing 50 passes in a wild 35-35 tie with the Denver Broncos. He was throwing the ball all over the field. But there was a warning sign hidden in all of that throwing. Joe was not running the careful, run-first offense that Chuck Noll wanted his team to play. And in Week 3, things began to fall apart. The Oakland Raiders came to town and beat Joe down. They hit him hard all game long. He managed only 8 completions on 31 tries, and he threw 2 interceptions. The Steelers lost 17-0. It was the first and only time one team shut out the other in the whole long history of that rivalry. The man who had been on a magazine cover 2 weeks earlier now looked completely lost. This is where the story gets harder, and where we have to be honest. After that loss, Joe's play kept slipping. A few weeks later, he beat Cleveland by a narrow score, but he completed only 5 of his 18 passes. Across the whole season, the numbers were not pretty for anyone. Joe threw for around 1,200 yards with 4 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and he completed under half of his passes. Soon after that Cleveland game, Noll benched Joe and put Bradshaw back in. The coach was clearly desperate. At one point, he even tried Hanratty as a starter, only to watch him throw 3 interceptions before going back to Bradshaw again. To the public, the team said the benching was a simple football choice. Some of Joe's own teammates, including John Stallworth, later said the same thing. They said Joe kept ignoring Noll's run-heavy plans. They said he struggled with discipline and was already starting to slip off the field. By that telling, Joe lost the job because he stopped doing his job well, and there's real truth in that. He had missed plans, he had missed meetings. He had started to drift away from the discipline the team needed from its leader. But there was another side that the clean football story left out. Joe was the first black man to start a season opener at quarterback for a real championship contender, and a wave of hatred came down on him because of it. He got piles of hateful letters, he got racial slurs, he got death threats. The team even received bomb threats aimed at the stadium. A local broadcaster named Myron Cope said his radio show was flooded with angry callers who could not stand the idea of a black quarterback leading their team. Bradshaw himself later said the pressure from the fans, the media, and the city pushed the coach to put him back in. So race was part of this. The hate was real, and it was ugly, and it never let up. Still, the truth here is not clean, and it should not be made clean. Joe was under attack, yes, but he was also losing the trust of his coach and his team. Both things were true at the very same time. He was a man being treated unfairly, and a man who was not holding up his end. That is the hard center of his whole story. What came next is the part that truly broke him. Joe later said that the beating he took in the Oakland game, mixed with all the racist abuse, pushed him to try cocaine to numb the pain. That choice was the start of a long fall. The cocaine did not stay alone. It grew into heroin, and once he was benched for good, the drugs took an even deeper hold on him. Before the 1976 preseason, the Steelers waived Joe after he missed a key team meeting. That meeting mattered, and he simply did not show up. He got a short chance with the New Orleans Saints, but they waived him in 1977 for breaking team rules. After that, his football life broke into pieces. He bounced through small semi-pro teams and short-lived leagues, from a club in Pittsburgh to one in Baltimore to one in New Orleans, and later to a couple of teams in a brand new league. His talent still flashed from time to time, but the addiction kept winning again and again and again. Every time it looked like he might find a steady footing, the drugs pulled him back under. A man who had once been the best player on a championship team was now drifting from one small club to the next, chasing a game that kept moving further out of reach. The next 2 decades were brutal. Joe faced drug and gun charges. He lost almost everything he owned. For about 2 years, he lived in a cardboard box under a bridge in Nashville. To pay for drugs, He pawned his 2 Super Bowl rings, the very proof of the greatest days of his career. He was attacked more than once on the street. One day, he climbed the Shelby Street Bridge, planning to end his life. But as he slipped in that one desperate second, he realized that he wanted to live after all. There was a small light in those years. In 1988, a television report about his hard life moved a group of kind fans to buy one of his rings back. In time, both rings were returned to his father, who locked them away in a safe until his son was steady again. But through all of this pain, neither the Steelers nor the league stepped in to help him. No money, no support for his troubled mind. The team that had put him in the center of a firestorm left him alone in the ashes. They had cheered when he won games for them. They had used his arm to reach for a title. But when the noise turned cruel and his life fell apart, the help never came. That silence says something about how the game treated the man who broke its barrier. And then, slowly, Joe began to climb back. By the late 1990s, he had been sober for 3 years in a row. He went home to Nashville and built a youth football camp at Tennessee State University. He worked hard in his community. He became a drug rehabilitation counselor, helping other people fight the same enemy that had nearly killed him. He started writing his life story in a book he called In Spite of Myself. In December of 2000, he stood on the field for the final Steelers game at Three Rivers Stadium and hugged old teammates like Lynn Swann and Franco Harris. He looked at long last like a man who had won. He had walked through fire and come out the other side. He was sober. He was useful. He was loved again. The man who had once slept under a bridge now stood on an NFL field with his old friends, his head held high. For anyone who had followed his fall, it was hard not to feel hope. That is what makes the ending so cruel. On Christmas Day in 2000, just 4 days before his 50th birthday, Joe sat watching a game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans with friends. Then he collapsed and he was gone. The first reports said heart attack. His father, lost in grief, told the press his son had died peacefully in his sleep. A hospital spokeswoman said the family truly believed it was a heart attack. The news spread fast and the country mourned a man who had turned his whole life around. Then the medical tests came in. The autopsy and the toxicology showed that Joe had died from cocaine. After 3 years of hard-won sobriety, he had relapsed, and that relapse killed him. The finding did not erase the good work he had done. It did not erase the camps, the counseling, or the lives he had touched. But it did show how fragile his recovery still was, even after everything he had built with his own hands. So now we come back to the title and to what was really lied about. We have to be careful here. There was no proven murder plot. There was no secret crime. The lie was something much quieter and sadder. It was the cleaner story that spread first. The heart attack version protected the image of a man who had been saved. The cocaine finding brought back the very part of his life that people wanted to forget. His family did not lie out of evil. For years, his drug struggles had been used by critics to put down black quarterbacks. By leaning on the heart attack story first, his family and friends were trying to guard the legacy he had fought so hard to rebuild. That is a protective discrepancy, not a crime. There is one more layer of confusion, and it is a modern one. In recent years, the internet has tangled Joe's story with someone else's. There is another man named Joe Gilliam, a lobbyist in Oregon who in 2020 was poisoned twice with a deadly metal called thallium, sometimes known as the poisoner's poison. That crime left him unable to move or speak, trapped in a still and silent state. Police looked at a family member who had taken a large amount of money from his accounts. Because the two men share the same name, automatic websites and true crime channels have mixed them up. This has created a false myth that the football player was poisoned by his own family. That is simply not true. The Oregon case is about a completely different man. The quarterback died of a drug relapse, not poison. So how should we remember Joe Gilliam Jr.? Not as a perfect victim and not as a simple villain. He was a true pioneer. He was the first black man to start a season opener at quarterback in his era, and he carried a weight that few people will ever understand. He was gifted, historic, and brave. He was also self-destructive, and his own choices helped pull him down. He opened a door that others would later walk through, and then he lost his way behind it. The deepest tragedy is the timing. He had clawed his way back. He was helping others, and he was so close to a peaceful ending when the relapse took him. His legacy is not clean, but it matters, and it always will.